Welcome back. We're looking today at integration and thematic instruction in our social studies methods course. Now, when you're thinking about integrating, going across various subjects, you want to look at using themes. And you think, well, how do I select a theme to use in my classroom? Any focus that you select as an organizer for multidisciplinary social studies instruction should intrigue your students. If learners find your focus topic to be dull, they will not participate. They'll have a hard time generating questions to go along with it, and any projects that you want them to fulfill might not live up to your expectations. But have you considered the fact that your students themselves are the best source of information as to what should be a good theme, what should be the topics, and the source of questions? Let's say in a 5th grade class, you want to include the following: maybe Native American groups, colonization, forming a new government, growth of a new nation, or maybe westward expansion. So knowing that you're going to cover those topics in your 5th grade class, you challenge your students to generate some questions related to some of those topics. And then you figure out, well, what could we do in math related to that? What could we do in the arts related to that? And then you ask questions such as, what kinds of people supported proposals related to some of the questions your students came up with? What kind of people did not fall in line with some of the topics that you want to deal with? Well, there's some basic ideas that you want to keep in mind, and that's what this PowerPoint is all about. First, when you're choosing themes, you want to make sure that you've chosen a theme that's feasible. A feasible theme has a clear potential to lead to successful student learning. In considering the issue of feasibility, you need to determine whether members of your class have access to the resources that they will need in order to complete the investigation. You don't want them to be frustrated. You don't want them to say, I could do it if only. You want to make sure that everything is feasible. All of the themes are feasible. Another consideration for your themes, you want to choose themes that are worthwhile and important for your students, as well as for their community. Themes that are worthwhile meet the key importance test. Do the themes you wish to use have the potential to help members of your class understand complex content? Do the themes focus topics allow your students to think about information in situations that they will see as helping them better understand the realities that they and their families encounter in the world? If your themes are worthwhile, then they will be a success with your students. Third, we want to look at whether or not the themes are contextualized. A contextualized theme or contextualized content includes information that responds to real and practical concerns of your students. For example, suppose you want to teach your learners about how conflict and controversy operate in a democratic society. If you choose to present the information in a lesson that focuses on debates in the General Assembly of the United Nations about environmental threats to Antarctica, many members of your class will wonder how such information ties to their own lives. So you want to make sure that you can put it in context. On the other hand, if you begin by involving your learners in lessons that center on a local controversy, something from their community, something from their city, something even from their neighborhood, then you might be able to touch their lives directly, and your students will see the relevance to the material to themselves. So we make sure it's conceptualized. Now, here's something else that we want to make sure of. This is another one that you might want to consider. Are you aware that ADRA actually has a site that you can go to and you can have a global aspect for your students? Since many of our students attend Sabbath school, you can go to the ADRA website, get some of the stories that they have there, and once you get the stories that they have there about children that are in other lands, then you can actually invite the students to be able to take up a penny collection or something and be able to send funds to help those children who are overseas in those countries. Another theme that you might, or another way that you might want to develop lessons around a theme might be related to the Sabbath school lesson itself. In the Sabbath school lessons, we know that they also, once a quarter, we have the Adventist mission stories. Well, you have access to those Adventist mission stories, and the website is right here that you can go online and bring those stories and help them to come to life for the children. Now, once you've decided on the theme that you're going to use, something else that you want to do is you're going to have to figure out a way to integrate the subjects so that they go across the theme. Now, in order to do that, you can use a graphic organizer to map the integration. Now, we have a very simple graphic organizer that you can look at that you might want to use something like this. So if you have a social studies topic that's dealing with the Civil War, for the arts, which everyone loves doing something for the arts, you can have the children sing Civil War songs, or you can teach them how to dance the Virginia Reel, or you can have them illustrate events. Still dealing with the Civil War topics, you could, for language arts time, you could have the students write letters, or teach them how to keep journals, which were very important during during the Civil War era. Or you can even have them participate in debates, or do readers' theater. For science, you could have the children find out about technology of the era, or all of the medical breakthroughs that took place during the Civil War. You can even have them identify climate and climate changes as it relates to some of the events that took place during the Civil War. For mathematics, you can encourage the children to calculate scale, estimate distances, solve word problems related to who fought what, when, and where. There's so much you could come up with in an area of topics such as the Civil War. Now, once you determine the theme and map the integration, the next is the most exciting part, because you now get to integrate the academic subjects using the activities that you determined that the students will use throughout the days. And I say days, not just one day, because usually if you're doing thematic instruction, it's going over several days. So the first part of that is you want to acquire and present activities that satisfy social studies standards while developing communicative competence. And what that simply means is you have the standards. We've already talked about the standards. And once you have the standards, the easiest thing that I find for teachers to do is usually to go and say, you know what, we want to focus on maybe using a book, maybe a children's literature book that the children can relate to, that's at their grade level, whether it's first grade, fifth grade, or eighth grade, and then we come up with activities related to that. For example, you might want to invest in a prepared thematic unit if you don't want to make up your own. And there's plenty of thematic units that are out there in integrated materials, such as Out of the Dust. Out of the Dust is really good because if you haven't read it already, it's in verse form, but it talks about something that would really is something that the children probably on the East Coast can't relate to, but it's in verse form and sort of in portrait form, so that they could, and then there's a lot of activities that you can do to relate to that, to help them to understand what it must have been like to live in a Dust Bowl. Another one that children, especially in the South, can relate to, but maybe children in the out West can't relate to, would be Watson's Go to Birmingham. And there's several thematic books that are out dealing with the Watson's Go to Birmingham 1963. It's dealing with a family that goes down into Birmingham during the civil rights period. And even though it's written for the level of a fourth grader, some of the material that's in there, and that's something you have to be careful with thematic books, is that the material might be at your student's reading level for the book, but some of the activities are just a little bit older because they have to be a little bit more developed, and they might feel just a little bit uncomfortable about some of the activities that they would have to do in there. Another suggestion that you have, if you don't want to go out and buy anything, is that you already have a Pathways unit. And within the Pathways units themselves, you already have integration of the subjects. And so instead of just doing, a lot of people like to do language arts during the 90-minute block, and they try to feed everything in there. Well, if you look at your Pathways book and your Pathways activities, you know that in your Pathways activities, you have social studies activities there, you have science activities, so you're already integrating instruction, so you're doing the thematic instruction already. So you just have to look at your social studies standards to see which standards you're already satisfying by doing the Pathways unit. And I strongly encourage you to take the time to use the Writers Workshop program. Because if you're doing Writers Workshop, you'd be surprised at how many social studies standards that you can cover by helping the students to learn how to write some of the genres that they need to be able to write in order to complete a Writers Workshop portfolio. So yes, social studies and language arts go together with when you're doing thematic instruction. But social studies goes along with science, along with math, and of course along with the arts as well. So have fun as you're putting together your thematic units, and we'll see you next time.